USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Learn more and get a quote at USAA.com/bundle. Restrictions apply.
On WhatsApp, no one can see or hear your personal messages. Whether it's a voice call, message, or sending a password. To WhatsApp, it's all just this. So whether you're sharing the streaming password in the family chat or trading those late-night voice messages that could basically become a podcast, your personal messages stay between you, your friends, and your family. No one else. Not even us. WhatsApp. Message privately with everyone.
Introducing the new Volvo XC90. With 7-seat versatility, Google built-in, and advanced safety features for all your precious cargo. The new Volvo XC90, designed for life. Visit volvocars.com/US to learn more.
Welcome to another Finely Edged production for the Premier League Cricket Club. Connecting players and coaches, clubs and leagues, volunteers and supporters alike, you're in the right place for the best of the 33 ECB Premier Leagues and the 20 NCCA counties, bringing you the stories, the stats and the standout performances that make this game great. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button to both our Premier League and NCCA shows so you don't miss any episodes. Now, shall we get stuck in? So welcome everybody to The Overthrow, another one of our little series of conversations from the Premier League Cricket Show with people who are in and around the I'll say periphery, but it's certainly not the periphery of cricket. Yeah, they're in and amongst it, but actually not playing is the best way to describe it. Joining me today, got my usual oppo, Mr. Hugh Newsom. How are you doing, mate?
Very good. I think that not playing cricket is probably the best place to be involved in cricket. Yeah, just we don't have to deal with the highs and lows if we're not playing, do we? We can just enjoy it from the sidelines a little bit more.
Just a little bit more. But the lady who's joining us today, she does get involved on the pitch as well through her sons. And, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, Lucy Norman, your two sons are battling out at the top of the North Wales Premier League at the moment in two separate clubs. Welcome, Lucy Norman, Chair of the North Wales Cricket League. How are you doing?
I'm great, thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me on the show.
Absolute pleasure. So, Brimbo and St Asaph, why have you let them go to two separate clubs?
I know it's a bit of an uncomfortable watch, if I'm honest. I think they're playing against each other this weekend coming as well. The last match, I think my eldest son Joseph was batting for a number of overs with his brother bowling at him. So the family WhatsApp group chat was quite funny afterwards because they were both in different places, and so that was a bit uncomfortable.
How's that come about? Normally we've got clans that stick together and sort of dominate leagues. They all have a big fallout one day and that's it, you know. Oh
no, absolutely not. No. So they both started their cricketing careers at Buckley Cricket Club, which is where we live. That's just they play in sort of lower division, so they're in Division 2. So as they got a little bit good at cricket, they obviously wanted to play the highest standard they could. So Joe moved first when he was 17 to Brimbo and really loves it there and is enjoying himself there. Will did a season at Brimbo when he first did his first season in the Premier Division when he was 16, but it didn't feel right for him. He was sort of battling it out with a lot of all-rounders and didn't get the ball much. So there was an opening at St Asaph for a spinner, and he went over there and really enjoys it there with a good group of lads. So yeah, nothing in the family-wise, more about, where they fit within the team, I guess, that they're playing in. But yeah, it's all amicable.
I was going to say, the sooner they both drive and can do their own thing, full stop then.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, they're both, So we me and my husband on a Saturday will be splitting ourselves some weeks, or we choose a ground another week because we like to go and watch most Saturdays at some cricket. So we were both actually on holiday this weekend, and we still went and watched cricket.
We've got to ask, where were you on holiday and what did you watch?
They were on holiday in Mallorca, but we went to Northup to watch a couple of T20 games. One was St Asaph Northup and Mockdra and St Asaph.
Okay, yeah, because you're in the T20 phase at the moment, aren't you?
So that was something that we introduced a couple of seasons ago to try and like really move that on as a bit of a format within North Wales. It hadn't in the past been that popular, with just sort of dominated by 2 or 3 teams that sort of enjoyed that. But the teams will be battling this out to get a place in the national competition. But also there's some big points if you win this competition to add to a league win as well. So if the winners of this competition will get 30 points to go towards the league.
How's that gone down with the clubs? Is this the first season you've done it, or have you done it over the last couple?
It is the first season. So it was discussed actually at the captain's meeting. I think last year we had some instances during the T20 sort of phase where perhaps teams weren't putting out their best side. So some of the games were a little bit weak, I think we were hoping for some big sort of, powerful, big T20 games, some big hits, some exciting games. And it was a little bit damp squid, if we're honest. There was a couple of games that didn't go ahead where weather was sort of played a little bit of a part. We sort of questioned whether if it had been a 50-over game, whether the games would have gone ahead. So we felt that actually tying it into the overall competition would ensure we get some really good cricket played. So we'll trial it this year, and I think we're quite open to changing things if things don't work. So we'll listen to the players. So we will engage the captains of the Premier the Premier Division to decide on this and make sure they're happy with that. But it's actually creating quite a good battle, really, because it could change things quite significantly. If you win the T20 competition. So it means these are quite crucial weeks. So I think last year quite a lot of players went on holiday.
Yes. Yeah, and I've got a funny feeling, Hugh, when we had a conversation this time last year with the Northants League, who have a similar block in the middle, I have a funny feeling they had availability issues and holidays and stuff going on then.
Yeah.
And the quality of the squads wasn't quite as much because everybody knew it was in the diary.
Yeah.
It's 2 or 3 weeks. If we want to take our holidays, we can take them then. So I think that 30 points, again, we love changes of Premier League point systems, but 30 points, that's an interesting one. That'll be really interesting to watch the results over the next couple of weeks. But hey, let's just go all the way back, Lucy, to the beginning. And I want to find out about how the hell you've ended up being one of only 2 female chairpersons in the country, yourself and Helen Ross down in Surrey. I've been on an exec myself. First question's dead simple. What on earth possessed you to want to do a league exec role?
I don't think I ever wanted to do it. I think I just sort of got into it. So I ran Buckley Cricket Club for a number of years. So I was club secretary there, sort of around, must be about 11, 12 years ago, I started there. So, and that sort of ties in when the boys were starting to play cricket.
So that's the natural way into this.
Yes, it is. So I think naturally what happens when you're involved, at a cricket club, if you get involved in your children's lives, you sort of go down and watch the cricket. It's nice and social. There's usually a glass of wine and a pint of beer. It's quite nice. And then suddenly somebody is coercing you at the side of the pitch. Oh, you've got a few skills. Perhaps you could come and join us and help us here. So part of a committee there that did, a load of really good work and a massive turnaround at Buckley. They were really struggling with things like funding and sponsorship and, getting the right facilities and just making it a really good proposition for people to want to bring their kids down and stuff. I think when I started there was sort of like one junior team, and I think Will, he was 7 at the time, was playing in like all the junior sides. It was sort of a bit of a struggle, but yeah, a really good group of people turned it around, and it's still thriving and everything today. So naturally, when you start sort of being around cricket, then you start, you probably realise quite a chatty person. People start talking to you about, have you thought about coming on, this committee? Would you think about doing the treasurer role on the junior committees? That was my first sort of inroad into doing something league-wise. So I was treasurer on the junior committee for a number of years. So then it just sort of snowballs, and the more you're around, people then start asking, would you like to do this? So a chap called Alan Senior, he was vice chair of the league at the time, asked me to go on a discipline panel. And we got quite, chatty and friendly, and he said, when I'm chair, would you think about being my vice chair? So that's sort of where the in was, sitting on a discipline panel, and then suddenly I'm now managing the league. So this is my final year.
Okay.
So I've done 3 years as vice chair, and then the vice chair role, what we do is that is also the discipline secretary role as well. So you do that, and then you can breathe a sigh of relief when you become chair that you don't have to deal with discipline again, which is probably one of the most challenging things that somebody has to deal with on the committee. And so I've been, chair for, this is my last season, it's my final season. So lots to reflect on, getting ready to sort of hand over the reins, and then see where I go after that. I don't know what I'll do with my time, to be honest, afterwards, because it is very absorbing. Cricket is absorbing of so much energy and time, and you sort of I found that the more you get involved, it's difficult to sort of step away, because you sort of want to do a good job, and you want to make sure that you're contributing to something.
It amazes me. You just seem like someone who is a glutton for punishment, and B, unable to say no. But so have you managed to divest the other roles that you've done, or have you got those building in the background? Because the one thing in cricket administration is that it's very hard. It's quite very easy to accept these roles, and very hard actually to pass them on to somebody capable.
Well, when I became chair of the league, I stood down at Buckley because I just felt that was the right thing to do. I think if you're, sort of trying to manage the interests of, multiple clubs and everything, I think it's better to be in a more independent, position. And I think to be fair, that's really worked for me. I wouldn't have been able to continue doing Buckley as well as doing the chair role. It was a struggle the years I was discipline secretary and doing that. Just in terms of my time, I work full time. So, people always say to me, how do you manage all of that? And I just say, I never watch the TV. I sort of work and do cricket and watch my lads play in the summer. That's it,
Which I think that's probably the case for hundreds of administrators around the country at many, many clubs, but more in particular, you're right, at many, many leagues. And having been on an exec myself, it is that classic one where people think, they don't know what they're doing, and you hear the club, they get the moans and groans, but actually they don't realise all that work that goes on behind the scenes. And from a day-to-day perspective, what does a normal, inverted commas, week feel like for you during the season? Is it just non-stop for you?
I think there's there's two halves, isn't it? There's the off season in winter, where it's always about sort of, getting the rules, the regs, the balls ordered, the sort of looking at, the placements of, whether people have met the promotion criteria and all of that. So there's that's sort of more, I guess, the administration side. I think then in season, you're absolutely dealing with things that come up, which could be, a difficult discipline case, or it could be just something like, a club phones up and says, we're struggling with this, we're struggling for players, we don't think we can, complete our fixtures. I'm really lucky. I think I've got, a fantastic team of people that really sort of take that responsibility of their role. So when something comes to me, it tends to be an escalation. It's what do you think about this, Lucy? Or I'm thinking of approaching, this sort of query or issue like this. Are you okay with that? So, but I can probably, I would say, 3 or 4, emails a day, could be a couple of, 3 or 4 phone calls a week. I think I've always made myself quite accessible to people, so that people feel supported within, their role on the committee and everything. And I would never want to change that. I think sometimes I'm probably, you make yourself a little bit too accessible, and then you feel like you're constantly, answering queries and things. I think the other part that, is sort of really important to mention is the extra governance now that has come from the ECB around, we've got these tiering systems now to sort of you've got to attest to all the certain things that you're doing so that you can be accredited as a Premier League. So I think, that continues to be a challenge, just in terms of, from a North Wales perspective, we've got, very, very diverse clubs. You've got your really, really thriving clubs that have perhaps got really, long established junior setups, lots of volunteers, sort of no issues with that. And then you've got perhaps more like your village-based clubs that, are going to struggle to perhaps meet some of those criteria if they want to work, want to play within Division 1 and the Prem. So that is, I guess, an ongoing worry of mine, just with how we're, I guess, set up in terms of, we haven't got a massive population in North Wales, and sort of a lot of the times, a lot of these clubs are fighting for the same players. You've got a number of clubs competing in small areas.
You talk about the youth there. How does it compete with like football, rugby? Obviously South Wales is very, very rugby. I'm not quite sure what the sort of typical 12-year-old, 10-year-old sporting landscape is up there. Is cricket able to find a foothold?
Yeah, I think it does. I think there is the challenge with that. I always say that football never seems to stop now, does it? It's like there's never seems to be a break in football. I think more so when I was at Buckley, used to, with the juniors and that, used to be a bit of availability problems with some of the juniors, and then sometimes juniors were picking cricket as more their second sport. I think you see it less so in the senior sides, because I think people, particularly in higher up the divisions, they sort of making a commitment to their team and, I'm going to play all season. I think you see it less there. I think there is still a challenge with, I see that cricket isn't played in state schools. I think, it's softball's played within, primary schools and things, but as soon as you get to secondary school, cricket's not played. And I see that as, a massive challenge, really. And that is something, if that could be overcome and we could get it in state schools, I think you would see a lot more participation. Because just some kids just never play it. They don't come across it. It's such a shame, really.
It is, and I'm personally of the belief that it'll never be back in state schools. I came through a state school. I'm cricket. Hugh, yourself, your lad's at a state school. He's playing very good level cricket. It's never going to go back. And we have a hashtag that we put on a lot of socials, which is "It all starts at the clubs." And I think we're finding more and more so these days, even compared to 20 and 30 years ago, that's where it starts. And to be fair, All-Stars, Dynamos, that's been the absolute godsend for a lot of clubs to get those 4, 5, 6-year-olds in. Whereas back in the day, you're right, Lucy, we'd have done it in state school and would have continued through. And I think the key for us in cricket as a whole now is to get those dynamos all the way through to hardball and keeping them all the way through. But you're right, football, no comment, gets in the bloody way. Especially in the northwest of England, football makes every headline left, right and centre. You guys also compete there with the Liverpool district competition on its doorstep. So you've got that competition. I mean, I think we've got to be realistic about where we go with the game, I think, at the end of the day. And I'm a big believer that if there's money there, put it into the clubs. Give it to the people who know how to use it at the clubs properly and actually drive it that way. Because, let's be honest, schools have never got the best record in the history of using their money that way. So it's an interesting one, but I'm sure we'll come round to that again at some point. But how do you balance that in terms of, you must get clubs knocking on the door week in, week out. Oh, I need this, I need that. I've got a problem with this, I've got a problem with that. Versus, number one, you can't please everyone all the time.
No.
Simple as that. But number two, the ECB governance procedures that are in place right now means you've got to be absolutely down the line.
Yeah, it is really, really difficult. And I think probably one of the most challenging things that we've dealt with was a club that was playing in the Premier Division that didn't meet the junior compliancy. And when I think I took over as chair, I was going through the figures with the the county boards manager, and we'd fallen down on a number of clubs that perhaps weren't meeting the right criteria. We made a difficult decision to relegate a club, and it was a very controversial decision. As in, I think clubs probably weren't expecting us to do that.
Exactly.
Because I think in the past, there'd perhaps been a nod to compliancy, but not fully enforced. But we can't get away from that now. We haven't, we have to give those numbers and those teams, right over to, the ECB on a regular basis. We have to give updates on clubs that perhaps are on nearly meeting it and they're on development plans. Well, how are they, on their development plans? And I think, we suffered a bit of, shall we say, bad press after that decision. It was difficult. It's quite stressful for the committee because, nobody, wants to make that decision based on not cricket, because, we're all about playing cricket, and you sort of relegating a club that's probably playing at the right standard just because of a compliancy piece. And it is difficult, but we have to implement the rules. If we don't do that, then we potentially put at risk our Premier League accreditation, we put at risk our funding, we put at risk our existence. So I think it's been quite hard for clubs to get their heads around that, if I'm honest. And it's been a bit of felt a bit unpopular if we're honest on that, and it has been difficult. I think trying to balance the needs. You've got clubs, as I said, that are in villages that haven't perhaps got the numbers of children to pull on to get their juniors in, versus clubs that based like near cities like Bangor and Wrexham, and they've obviously got a lot more children to pull on. But essentially, I always say is that it all starts with the kids. If you do not have a thriving junior section and you are not bringing juniors through, your club will not survive, because people get old and people get families, and it becomes like more difficult for to fill those teams when people's attention goes elsewhere. So I think listening to clubs to a point. Yes, we've got to listen. We're there to I always say we're there for to provide the governance framework, fixtures, results, make sure the games go ahead. We're there to facilitate cricket being played. But what comes with that now is a whole new level of governance, which, we've got to balance out to obviously keep our funding. So I think clubs are, a lot of clubs understand that. Some clubs perhaps not so understanding.
I mean, I had a chat a few years back, was playing a second team game at a club, and their first team had not accidentally got promoted, but, had got promoted to a league where these criteria take place, regarding youth setup. And after the game, I had an hour's conversation about building, promoting youth cricket, and actually without these criteria in place to force teams to do this, these conversations don't happen. And clubs that go up in division, where they're going to get their players from, they're going to get them from the youth of other clubs. So it's an absolutely crucial thing. And I think probably every single club in the land is happy for these criteria to be in place, bar a few that, maybe struggle in this area. But I think whilst it's an unpopular decision individually, I think collectively it's a very popular decision on the whole.
Yeah, I mean, and that's it. And if it makes clubs jump into action and think, right, okay, this is what we've got to do. But actually, whilst they're doing that, they're gaining players, then, it's a win-win situation, isn't it?
The only clubs I've seen disappear off the local framework here in the last couple of 3 years have all but had one thing in common: no junior setup.
Yeah.
They've generally been clubs with one team, maybe two at a squeeze, but the junior setup was negligible. And we go on and on and on about the word sustainability when it comes to the environment. Yeah. Actually, forget that. Sustainability starts with the kids coming through the clubs, because if you haven't got it, your club's dead. And I know Hugh and I would both applaud everything you said, Lucy, and back you guys on that. I mean, there was pure coincidental. We talked about the Northants League having the T20 block. They had a club last year who came third in the Premier League and got relegated 2 divisions. And our understanding is it's for exactly the same reasons.
Yeah.
And the last thing we want is 4 or 5 clubs in your league to be spending money left, right, and centre, to be bringing players in and not having a junior setup, while all the others are having a big junior setup and trying to actually. It's got to be balanced, hasn't it, to say the least?
It is, and it certainly is. And we've made difficult decisions as well not to promote clubs into those divisions, to keep to the rules essentially. And I think I would prefer there to be no sort of areas of grey in this area. I think it's important that clubs really understand this is the criteria, this is what you've got to meet, and not having areas of grey. I think it's important because then clubs know what they're working to and where they're at. Absolutely.
I mean, in terms of challenges generally, that sounds like one of the biggest challenges you've gone through over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
What would you say the highlights have been, though, for you in that, as you say, you're in your 3rd year now? Got to ask, have you stepping down after 3 years because you guys have always had that rule in place?
Yeah.
So you guys haven't brought that in on the back of the ECB saying you've got to?
No, it's always been in place. It's a constitutional thing. And I always think, with committees, what happens invariably over time is that, people get, if you don't have this sort of rotation, people get very comfortable, don't they, within a seat. And I always think, you need to bring sort of fresh ideas and things into that. I think it's a good thing to keep it fresh, really. Mm-hmm. We've had some new people on the committee, some younger people as well coming through as well, which I think helps. And then people that are actually playing the game, because I'm not speaking out of turn, but quite often league committees are retired males. Can I jump in and tell you what Bumble thinks they are? What? Full of people with little empires. Oh. when Bumble says that, he isn't talking about the Lucy Normans of this world. You're right. He's talking about those male retirees. That's exactly what Bumble said to us last December. And you nailed it. I don't think you're being rude in saying that. Yeah. It's a fact. Yeah. I mean, the first Premier League chairs meeting I went to at the hotel, by Lords, and you walk in the room, you go, wow. Yeah, this is probably the least diverse meeting I've ever attended in my working life. And I think it's difficult, because I found it difficult working full time to fit this role in. It is a challenge. And, I'm probably a very productive person and, can manage it. But somebody else less so might find it even more, more challenging. And I think that's why it does end up being retired people. It's some of the meetings the ECB put in are sort of, they're during the day. So that means I have to take annual leave, to join cricket meetings, which, I've done. And, you have to do that. But your annual leave is there really for my leisure time. And, but I'm taking annual leave to be a volunteer. So, it is challenging. So, diversity on committees, I think I would imagine that is a challenge across, all the leagues. And it tends to be, retired cricketers, doesn't it, as well, that want to stay in the game, which is good because they understand the game. But I think bringing some diversity of opinion in is also a good thing.
When you wanna grow your list size, pop up like it's hot, pop up like it's hot, pop up like it's hot. And when you gotta boost your revenue, pop up like it's hot, hey, pop up like it's hot, pop up like it's hot. Pick your favorite template, you can tailor to your brand. They're MailChimp-erific, you're gonna be a fan. MailChimp your marketing with our new customizable pop-ups.
Yep, the beauty junk drawer. Full of those used once, why did I buy this? That was a waste products. Stop adding to it. Shop at Sephora and break the cycle. Sephora only carries the hot, high-quality products you'll never regret buying, and brands you can only find at Sephora, like Kayali, Makeup by Mario, Kerastase, and M Beauty. Shop the hottest beauty with no regrets, only at Sephora.
How do you manage the dual linguistic side of the Wales League? Obviously North Wales is quite a heavy Welsh-speaking area and a very proud Welsh-speaking area. This is saying this with some seriously Welsh-speaking relatives that live in your area. Whereas, normally league committees are pretty bad at having a battle with a spell checker at the best of times. So obviously, if you've got to produce all your documentation in Welsh and English, is that what you do, or are you able to just go down one road?
We just produce ours in English. We have got Welsh speakers on the committee. Should needed, but all our communications are in English. I'm actually English as well. I'm not actually Welsh, so I don't speak any Welsh.
So there isn't sort of some pressure on you to sort of say, everything has to be in two languages.
We've not had that. No, I've just realised I haven't answered your questions about highlights. Actually, I was going to go back to that. So I think one of the things that going around the grounds, chatting to people. I think one of the big things, particularly for the higher divisions, was around sort of, the standard of cricket being played and how we improve that. So I think we made a decision a couple of seasons ago to reduce the Prem to 10 teams and to make it, a bit, I guess, a better competition with then having the T20 competition. And I think that's working really well, because I think this year, if we look at, who could win the Premier Division, I mean, it could be probably one of 6 teams, whereas in previous years it's sort of been maybe a 2-horse race, 3-horse race. So I think things are improving in that sense. As a league, we've also supported the setup of the Wales National County North setup, so the North Wales representative side. So we support that with a bit of funding. That's run by a chap, Russell Penryn Jones. That's been, I think, really good for our area, because it's sort of it's been difficult for players in the north to get notice by the Wales side. It's a challenge, and the travel is a challenge. So the games, as we know, a lot of them are played in the south.
Brad Waddler, the national coach, says that himself. It's difficult because they are all based down there. So it's not like it's North and South Wales. It's a long bloody drive between the two, isn't it?
Yeah, well, we've done it for many years. Our younger son was played Wales age group cricket for 8 years. So that was a big challenge for us. The constant up and down, to Cardiff and Newport. So it is a challenge. So I think that setup of that side has been good. It's been, players have got something to aspire to have a representative side. They're playing some good teams, sort of tend to be, second 11s of counties and stuff. So long may that continue, because I think it gives, players something to aim for.
So that North Wales side is just obviously the North Wales junior setup. They have the North Wales, South Wales. I don't have a West Wales, do they?
I think it's North East, South West. Yeah.
Right, and so they feed into Glamorgan. Is that right? Or does that so does that stop at sort of 12, 13, or does that keep going now all the way through?
To be honest, I think there's been a change this year on the pathway stuff. So I'm probably not the best person to ask on that, given now my sons are sort of out of that sort of age group. So it's probably a question for somebody else, that one too.
Because I mean, we were down in Newport playing Glamorgan the other day, my lad at 13, and it's a home game for Wales. Yeah. And the North Wales, I didn't go to that one, but it was 2.5 hours, I think, from my wife. Yeah. And the North Wales guys potentially driving 4 hours. It's for a home game. I mean, it's just almost insurmountable, really. I mean, and it's enough to go, do you know what, particularly if you're on the fringes of that side, or, battling for spot, go, what's the point of this, and you've got Cheshire on your doorstep, you've got Lancashire, there's really, actually, Wales is potentially more trouble than it's worth when you've got other counties, and particularly now, actually, you can move into other counties and get trials for other counties much more easily. Is that a conversation that's come up?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's definitely challenging. From speaking to other parents, we did it for, as I say, a number of years with Will. It puts a lot of pressure on your finances. As parents, and also the player itself. If you're thinking that you're getting up at 5 a.m. on a Sunday morning to go and play a 50 over game, it's not ideal. And those North Wales children given really the same opportunity in that sense that, they have got all that travel and everything else. It's, it is really, really difficult to balance. And as I say, I think it could cut people out of the process with the cost of that travel, hotels and, the cost of fuel and everything. So I think, you do see people in this area. So some children do go the other side to Cheshire and Lancashire if they can get sort of in those setups. I think there's various rules and things around where you're schooled and things.
Yeah, I think from my understanding, Lancashire, more or less are saying North Wales is ours these days. So I'm not saying it's a land grab, but it's a player grab without a shadow. But you've seen the likes of Romano Franco come out of your Premier League, playing for North Wales and now for Wales, and actually doing second team cricket around the country. So it can work, and there is the quality coming out there. Definitely, that's got to be on your radar, Lucy, to sort of how many players we can develop out of this league.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, and I think that's where supported Russell with his, setup, because we see that as being really important. And as I said, one of the things that we really want to do is improve the standard of cricket played in the Premier Division, and I think. Having something then to move on to is really important. As I say, I'm less close to the sort of the children's sort of age group pathway at the moment, but if that I think that does continue to be a challenge. But as you say, there's probably other counties that are willing to take on, if you've got the talent. They can pick those children up.
Let's go back to the very boring administration stuff, and this is the great stuff for me. I think you described the season very well. The season tends to be very reactive for you guys, and then out of season it's proactive and it's getting ready for the season. What do you see the biggest challenges for execs around the country generally at the moment in terms of the governance and things that have been thrown at you? What do you think the biggest challenges are?
Well, if I'm really honest, I think the challenge is that the roles on these committees are becoming like what you would expect a paid person to do. So there's governance. I mean, we've had over the last couple of years all the boundary training for EDI, for anti-discrimination. We've got all this tiering system. Within clubs, we know the sort of all the accreditation pieces and everything that clubs have to do. I think more and more this role is becoming more than what a volunteer should be expected to do. I think it's, if some things we've issues and incidents and things that you're looking at, you're thinking, wow, I don't really want to deal with this. This is more than what I would deal with in my day job. It's sort of, and then that's where you have to call upon your county board. So we'd, engage with, your contacts at Cricket Wales and ask for support. So I think that the biggest challenge is that, when I say really the role should be about, its fixtures, its results, its facilitating cricket. The governance side, I feel at times is taken over, and the expectation now of the ECB of volunteers, and I mean they're all volunteers in these roles, it's quite a lot really, and I think that puts people off, if I'm honest, in terms of trying to recruit, whether it's on league committees, club committees, coaches, all of that. I think it becomes more difficult, doesn't it, to recruit people who think, oh God, this feels like there's a lot of administration around this and a lot of governance and compliance. And, with some things we absolutely, you have to get it right. When it comes to the kids, the safeguarding piece, it absolutely has to be correct and right, and fully supportive of that. I think just over time, the documentation, the tiering, you've got to test this, you've got to do that, it's becoming more and more like what somebody should be doing in a paid job.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think what I find fascinating is the way your friends down at Surrey have gone through their transition over the winter. And Helen's chairing a championship down there that is now a fully blown pyramid around the Surrey area, but they've got paid officials in the Surrey Foundation doing a lot of the stuff that you guys are doing as volunteers still to this day. And they've had to do that because it's such a ginormous organisation pulling it all together. But I think there's that tipping point, as you say, where how much of this should you be doing on a day-to-day basis versus, and I always use the phrase, it's your name above the door at the end of the day. You know, from a legal perspective, it's your name, Lucy Norman, above the door for if anything goes wrong. You don't get paid for that in your day job, so why should you get paid for it as a volunteer?
And it's been a challenge, and I think, I have, quite a, responsible, stressful job. So I've got that to deal with. But at times the stress, I would say, that you experience as a league chair is probably more than what I've experienced in my day job at times. And I think because, people get very emotive about their cricket club or about an incident or, and it's quite difficult to then, I think switching off sometimes from it as well is really hard. And, it's sort of, I've been on holiday to Italy with my husband and I sort of sent a note to the committee saying, I'm going to be off, for a week. I'm not going to answer stuff because I think you have to have that switch off, and it's, you have to be able to step away from it. But you sort of think, wow, this is something I'm volunteering to do.
Exactly. And that's actually a challenge to switch off, isn't it?
It is, yeah, definitely. And I think particularly like in my household, I've got two sons playing as well. So you're hearing all the cricket chat. I go to a lot of games, you're hearing that, it's sort of, it's sort of pretty full on in season because it becomes all, from April to September, it just becomes all about cricket.
It's a lot of work to organise some blokes and ladies chasing a bit of leather around a field, isn't it? I mean, that's really the basics of it. Yeah, and that shouldn't be too bad. And then there's all this, and there's a lot more this than there is the chasing the bit of leather around a field.
Yeah, no, definitely. There's sometimes it feels unbalanced.
But it's a summer sport, so at least we're doing all this out in nice fields on sunny days. Rather than imagine running a football league, dear oh dear.
Yeah. I think that was definitely last season one of the biggest challenges as well. The amount of rain that we'd had in the off season, and then we'd had all the fixtures are produced, and suddenly it's like there's absolutely no way that anybody's going to be able to get on middle of April, and then you're redoing all the fixtures, redoing the T20 competition, and got a really good chap, Andy Tilley, who does all our fixtures and results, and he just took it all in his stride. Oh, don't worry, I'll just redo them all, and he's absolutely brilliant. So having people like that are just have got such great can-do attitudes, is fantastic. And then he deals very patiently with all the club requests of, we have rugby still playing on our ground for these 4 weeks. Football hasn't finished yet, and then he's got so much to juggle. But he does a fab job of that.
I think you nailed it there, Lucy, when you talk about those other members of the committee who have very specific roles that sound easy, but they're far from. I mean, one of the ones I always smile about, we've got a gentleman, David, in the Derbyshire League, who I think has got the toughest job in the entire organisation. He's the registration secretary. And the amount of work that goes on with that off season is just compounded by towards the start of the season. Where do you find these people? Is the simple, where are we going to find these new, guys to do fixtures?
No, I think
they can't go on forever, can they?
What is challenging is if I look around the table at the committee, most people are already doing 2 or 3 roles at their cricket club. Yeah, so it's you're looking like, wow, the pool of volunteers gets less, doesn't it? People that you can entice on the committee, and we've had a couple of vacancies, and I've approached people and said, I've got this vacancy, I think you'd be a really good fit for this, and I'm already doing 2 roles at my club, or it's really difficult. I think probably what I'd like to see is more players taking a bit more responsibility as well, and thinking, is that something I could do?
Yeah.
I mean, there's, I have got, a few players on my committee, and I think that works well because they're close to the game. But I think it's a challenge. I mean, one big area, which is, I believe is a challenge across the country, is umpiring. Recruiting umpires
Absolutely.
is near and impossible. It's really difficult. And, I don't think I haven't got an answer for that, because it feels like, well, we need the players that are thinking about retiring to become umpires, but they don't want to do it because they want to enjoy their weekends, isn't it?
Absolutely. Or you go down the route of the West of England Premier League, where they give bonus points for clubs supplying an umpire. So they don't need to be in the Premier League, but if you've got an umpire who's actually going to do your second 11 or third 11 game, they gave bonus points. And last year, the team that won the Premier League had the most bonus points for umpires in their league. And I'm not saying I agree with that totally, because I'm 6 and 2 threes, and there's many different ways to skin a cat, obviously. But you're right. We're just running out of umpires, literally. It's a bit of a standing joke at any league you'll go to that, who's the oldest person on the ground? Is it the umpire or the ground staff?
Ground staff is
a big issue for us all.
That tends to rely, be one volunteer at the club doing that as well. And I mean, I think the shout out would be for anyone listening, players take a bit more responsibility and think about, is there a role I could do? And, help, whether it's at your club or join a committee.
You're obviously stepping down at the end of this season, at the next AGM, but what would your vision for the North Wales League be in the next 3 to 5 years? If you were there still, you've obviously put things in place to go forward. What would you like to see happen?
Well, I think we'd definitely like to continue the good work that's already been done, improving standards of the cricket that's played, perhaps looking at other competitions maybe could be something that we could look at. I think the biggest thing for me is looking across all the clubs, how do we entice more juniors into the game? I think, and working probably with the junior committees and, that type of thing. So I think if we get that right, the North Wales League will thrive. The more juniors that we bring through, you're feeding that machine. So, and the chair of the junior committee, John Williams, he sits on our committee. He comes to our committee meetings. So we've already got that closeness. I think growing the women and girls game is really important. So the Women's League sits outside of our committee, but there is a new criteria that you may or may not be aware of, that for Premier and Division 1 need to have a girls team by next year. That's going to be challenging for some clubs. Some clubs have not made to start on that. So that's going to be challenging for some. So but I think, as we know, the numbers show that girls, participation with girls is not the same as boys, and we want to improve that. It's a great game, to play. I would have loved it if cricket had been available when I was in school, but it's something that I've never got to play.
I had that exact conversation with my wife yesterday about my daughter, who back in the day she loved playing a little bit of what was quick cricket equivalent, but weren't clubs around at that day, whereas now she could literally walk down any street, where she lives in Leeds, and find a club, to say the least. And I think that is ultimately where we've got to go to make sure that the game does keep developing. I think the other thing for you that I'd got to ask before we close, how proud are you to be a chairperson of a Premier League, and B, the person who's above you at the top of recreational cricket, she's another lady, and she happens to be Welsh as well, Leisha Hawkins. It just, the opportunities are there if people want to take them on.
They are. I mean, I sort of never really think about my gender in this role, if you know what I mean. It's not really something that I didn't actually know that when I think Paul Bedford, the Countess manager at the time, said to me, "Oh, there's only 2 of you that are female." I was like, "Oh, right, okay." It wasn't something that I thought was really, significant for me. But, I do think that some women could be put off by the male-dominated environment that is club management, or league management, and when you go to the chairs meetings, you're sitting in a room full of men. So I think, that, but it shouldn't put anyone off. I mean, I sort of think actually my husband and lads always say, oh, we're really proud of you. You know, it's nice because it's always a bit, obviously, I'm sure the lads are probably hearing, oh, the bloody league are doing this and all of this sort of stuff. You can just imagine it, can't you, in the changing room. And so I'm sure they get a bit of stick about it. But that's nice when they say things like, oh, they're proud of their mum, which is good. Yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed it. I think, definitely, lots of lessons learned, lots of things that I've had to deal with that I've never had to deal with in a working environment. Also, obviously, dealing with volunteers, you always have to get a different lens of, okay, this, you're talking to a volunteer here, somebody that is giving up their time. And do you know what? I'd never, you always got to sort of really, really, welcome these people of like, if people are willing to give up some of their precious leisure time to get cricket on and bring children through a junior setup or, help getting the fixtures sorted or help on the grounds, I think, God, that should be really commended. And, really just sort of look after your volunteers is a, big message from me is, because often it does feel like a thankless task. And that some of the times when I've had randomly, maybe a couple of club officials may just email, say, I think you're doing a really great job. I think I've got 2 or 3 of them and I've saved them down. And so if you're having a bad week, you think, oh no, some people think I'm doing a good job, so that's all right. So, yeah.
It's far easier to write a letter of complaint than it is to write to say thank you very much. And I'm sure the vast majority of the North Wales League, as much as they'll moan and groan about this, that and the other, because I've been there, they do appreciate all the work that goes on behind the scenes, because there's a lot that the game would go ahead without administrators is what I say. But it actually is just an organised game when you put administrators in place and actually make it work. And I always use rugby union as a great example. If you remember back in the day, we used to watch on BBC Grandstand and give you the rugby union results at the end of the day. And it'd be Sale versus Bath. But it was a friendly. They were all basically friendlies that they played, but they organised themselves. Whereas once they became organised and became the Premier League for rugby and it became the championship and it became these things, that administration makes it far more competitive. And that's what you guys do, isn't it? You create a competitive environment to make the best cricket, get as much cricket on the ground as you possibly can at all levels, and just make it competitive. And I applaud anyone an exec who does it, because I've been there and done it.
No, I think that's it. You've got to, anyone willing to give up their time, we salute you.
Absolutely. A great chatting with you about all things North Wales and the exec, Lucy. Enjoy this last season. I'm sure at the end of the season there'll be a lot of clubs out there say, "Oh, grass is greener. We could have had Lucy back now." What happens, isn't it? The new chairman or chairwoman, whichever it is, will be absolutely obliterated by some clubs, and some will say, "Thank God Lucy's gone." That's the nature of the game, isn't it?
It is. It's the nature. Yeah, definitely nature of the beast.
Thanks, Lucy.
Okay, cheers.
Thanks for joining us at the Premier League Cricket Club. We'll be back soon with more from the world of Premier League and NCCA cricket. But in the meantime, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review and follow us wherever you get your socials. Or maybe check out our website, premierleaguecricket.co.uk, to stay updated. Until next time, have a good one.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.